Hey everyone, so you know how sometimes you just feel it that nagging sense of being stretched too thin, or like you're constantly saying yes to things you absolutely dread? Or maybe you're just exhausted from trying to be everything for everyone? Well, if that sounds familiar, then you absolutely need to hear about this book I just devoured. Set Boundaries. Find Peace by Network Glover Toa. Seriously, if there's a boundary Bible out there, this is it. I picked up this book because let's be honest, who doesn't struggle with boundaries sometimes? Nedra, who's a fantastic licensed therapist herself, cuts right to the chase, explaining that a lot of our issues, from feeling overwhelmed and resentful to struggling with self-care or time management, often boil down to a simple lack of healthy boundaries. She makes it so clear that boundaries aren't about being mean or selfish, they're the blueprint for a peaceful life, helping you feel safe and comfortable in all your relationships. So, what exactly are boundaries according to Nedra? Think of them as your personal expectations and needs that help you feel safe and comfortable in your relationships. They're like safeguards to stop you from overextending yourself, and they're a fundamental part of self-care. The book introduces us to three main types of boundaries, which really helped me categorize where I stood. First, there are porous boundaries, which are super weak or poorly expressed. If you're a people pleaser, constantly oversharing or feeling drained because you can't say no, you probably have porous boundaries. It's like having a sieve and everything just flows right through, leaving you depleted and anxious. Then there are rigid boundaries, which are the opposite, like building walls to keep everyone out. If you avoid vulnerability, cut people out, or have extremely high expectations of others, you might lean rigid. It's a self-protective mechanism, but it can lead to loneliness. And finally, the goal healthy boundaries. These are when you're clear about your values, comfortable saying no and hearing no, and share appropriately with people who've earned your trust. It's about balance. But if it's so simple, why is it so incredibly hard to set them? That's a question Nedra dives deep into. She points out that often it comes down to fear of being seen as mean or rude, fear of disappointing people, or anxiety about how others might react or if things will get awkward. She shares stories like Justice, who as a child became the man of the house and found it impossible to ask for or accept help later in life because of emotional neglect. This really resonated with me because it shows how deep-seated some of these patterns are, often stemming from our family history and childhood experiences. And here's the kicker, the one that probably hits home for most of us: the guilt. I was like, Nedra, just tell me how to set boundaries without feeling guilty. But she's refreshingly honest, saying you can't. She explains that guilt is just a part of the process, a feeling that comes and goes, often from our programming that having needs is bad. But you know what? We can still carry on while feeling guilty. It's just a feeling, not a stop sign. So how do we actually do it? Nedra gives us a clear two-step process: communication and action. First, you have to verbally communicate your needs clearly and directly. No hinting, no hoping they'll read your mind. Use "I want," "I need," or "I expect" statements. And here's a massive takeaway: never ever apologize for having boundaries. Seriously, when you apologize, it makes your expectations sound negotiable. But then, what if they push back? What if they ignore you or try to test your limits? Well, that's where the action part comes in. Nedra says people will likely push back, question you, or even give you the silent treatment because you're challenging their comfort zone. Her advice: acknowledge their concern, then firmly restate your boundary. Don't explain too much, and definitely don't let violations slide, not even once, because that sends a clear message that you're not serious. The book truly highlights that clarity saves relationships. It's true, if you don't make it clear, people don't know what you want. The book then dives into how these boundaries play out in different areas of your life, and it's so eye-opening. For instance, in family relationships, which Nedra calls the hardest place to set boundaries, she tells the story of James caught between his wife and overbearing mother, and how setting boundaries helps him become an adult child rather than still being parented by his mom. It's tough, but tough love is you creating and keeping healthy boundaries. Then there are friendships. Ever had that friend who just constantly complains? Like Dave and Kevin's story, Nedra reminds us that you're a friend, not a therapist, and that enmeshment does not make you a good friend. It's okay to redirect, suggest professional help, or reduce your interactions if a friendship is draining you. And let's not forget work. The book talks about Janine, who felt she was in a toxic work environment because of gossip and overwork. Nedra suggests that sometimes it's not the environment that's toxic, but your lack of boundaries within it. Things like saying no to extra projects or not participating in office gossip can make a huge difference. She even shares her own boundaries as a therapist to avoid burnout, like limiting clients and taking vacations. People treat you according to your boundaries, she says. That's a powerful thought. Finally, social media and technology, a huge one for today's world. The book explores how digital overload can impact our mental health and relationships, using the example of Lacey, who was constantly glued to her phone, causing stress for her partner Tiffany. Nedra stresses that technology itself isn't the problem, it's our human engagement and consumption. She suggests setting limits on screen time, unfollowing accounts that make you feel bad, and even creating boundaries for how people interact with you online, as she does with her own Instagram page. Ultimately, the biggest takeaway for me was the importance of setting boundaries with yourself. This is about self-discipline, from your finances to how you talk to yourself, or the kind of people you allow into your life. You can't change others, but you can change how you deal with them, what you accept, and your perspective. It's about being a boundaried person. Even if you don't believe it at first, in conclusion, set boundaries. Find Peace isn't just a book, it's a roadmap to reclaiming yourself. It pushes you past the discomfort and fear to assert your needs, knowing that setting limits won't disrupt a healthy relationship. Instead, it exposes the unhealthy patterns and gives you the tools to create relationships where you feel safe, loved, and respected. If you're ready to stop the overwhelm, the resentment, and the constant people-pleasing, this book is your next must-read. It really can change your life, just like it changed Nedra's and countless others. Trust me, the journey toward healthier boundaries is worth the discomfort of setting them, so go grab a copy and start your own journey to peace.